Today I want to share a story that still makes my skin crawl every time I recall it. It happened about a year ago, during what was supposed to be a routine business trip. I was in my late 20s, working as a software consultant, and my company had sent me to Portland for a week-long conference. They put me up in one of those chain hotels near the convention center, the kind that feels both impersonal and vaguely intimate, with identical corridors and the faint smell of disinfectant. From the moment I checked in, I had this low-level anxiety I couldn't shake. I chalked it up to travel fatigue and the pressure of the upcoming presentations. But as the days passed, that anxiety curdled into outright dread, all because of room 714. The first night was uneventful. I unpacked, ordered room service, and collapsed into bed, exhausted. The second night, however, things started to shift. I woke up around 3 a.m., parched, and reached for the glass of water I'd left on the nightstand. My fingers brushed against the glass, and it was warm. Not room temperature, but distinctly warm, as if someone had just held it. Nervous, I sat up in the dark, my heart thumping. I told myself I was being ridiculous. Maybe the heating vent was directed oddly, or I was just disoriented. I drank the water anyway. But sleep didn't come easily. The next afternoon, returning from the conference, I found the room tidier than I'd left it. I'm a messy person when I travel. I'd strewn clothes over the armchair and left my laptop charger snaking across the desk. Now the clothes were folded neatly on the luggage rack, and the charger was coiled into a perfect loop. Housekeeping, I reasoned, but a check of the Do Not Disturb sign showed it was still hanging on the outside knob. I called down to the front desk. The manager, a woman with a professionally soothing voice, assured me that their staff was meticulous, and perhaps I'd forgotten I'd requested service. I hadn't. The first real chill went down my spine. That evening I decided to test a theory. Before leaving for dinner, I placed a single strand of hair across the top drawer of the dresser. It was a silly spy movie tactic, but I needed proof. When I returned, the hair was gone. Nothing was taken. My passport, wallet, laptop, all untouched. But the climate control panel, which I'd set to 68 degrees, now read 72. And the television was on, muted, on a channel showing static snow. I hadn't turned it on, scared. I stood in the center of the room, listening to the faint hiss from the TV and the hum of the air conditioner. The silence felt watchful. I reported it again. This time, the hotel security accompanied me to the room. They scanned it with a practiced eye, checked the locks, the balcony, and found nothing. They suggested, with polite skepticism, that maybe the stress of travel was getting to me. I felt embarrassed and furious. That night, I barricaded the door with a chair and slept fitfully with the bathroom light on. At some point deep in the night, I heard it. A soft, rhythmic scraping like a fingernail being dragged along the wall behind the headboard. I lay frozen, barely breathing, until it stopped after what felt like an hour. The next day was the final day of the conference. I was running on caffeine and nerves, delivering my presentation in a fog. All I could think about was the room. I needed evidence, something undeniable. I bought a small, cheap motion-activated camera from a tech store downtown. Before heading out for the conference farewell dinner, I placed it on the bookshelf, angled to cover the main area of the room. I made a show of leaving, slamming the door extra hard. The dinner was a blur. I made excuses and returned to the hotel early, around 9 p.m. My hands were shaking as I retrieved the camera. I plugged it into my laptop, and the video file loaded. The timestamp began shortly after I left. For the first 20 minutes, nothing, just the empty room. Then the door to the bathroom, which was definitely in the frame, slowly swung open. No one came out. The door just opened by itself. A few minutes later, the desk chair rolled back from the desk, as if someone had gotten up from it. But there was no one there. The video showed objects moving in a sequence. A pen lifted and was placed in a different spot. The curtains twitched. The remote control slid across the nightstand. It was all done without any visible cause. No shimmer, no shadow, nothing. Just inert objects obeying an unseen presence. I felt a cold, heavy weight settle in my stomach. This wasn't a person. This was something else. I was about to call the front desk again, to demand a new room immediately, when I noticed something on the video I'd missed. Near the end of the clip, the camera's view shifted slightly, as if it had been bumped, and in the reflection of the dark television screen, for just a fraction of a second, I saw a figure. It was tall, blurred, and standing right behind where the camera was mounted. It was in the room with me, watching me watch the recording. Panic. I spun around, my back against the wall. The room was empty, but the air felt thick and cold. I couldn't stay another second. I threw all my belongings into my suitcase, not bothering to fold anything, and fled to the lobby. I demanded to see the manager on duty. This time, I showed him the video. His face, previously a mask of bland courtesy, went pale. He didn't offer excuses or explanations. He simply said, "I'm so sorry, sir. Let me get you another room, on a different floor." But I was done. I checked out right then and there, at 10 p.m., and spent the night in a brightly lit airport hotel. I tried to put it behind me. A month later, out of morbid curiosity, I did some digging online. I found a forum for travel horror stories and searched for the hotel name and room number. A few threads popped up. Stories from over a decade ago. A man had died in room 714, a business traveler like me, who had suffered a sudden aneurysm. But the older posts, the ones buried deeper, hinted at something more. The hotel was built on a parcel of land that had once housed a transient boarding house. There were rumors of a resident, a man who was a recluse, who would secretly watch other tenants through gaps in the walls. He died in his room, never having been discovered for days. His room was supposedly in the northwest corner of the old building, which corresponded almost exactly to where room 714 now stood. The most chilling post was a single sentence from an anonymous user. "It doesn't want you to leave. It just wants to pretend it's still living your life." I closed my laptop and haven't booked a hotel room for myself since. My company now knows I will only stay in accommodations with stellar, verifiable reviews, and I always travel with a colleague. The fear hasn't left me. It's the small things now, a misplaced key, a changed thermostat in my own home, that send a jolt of terror through me. Because sometimes I wonder if that presence didn't just stay in room 714. I wonder if it liked the feel of my life a little too much and decided to follow me home. And that's where the story